Good evening. My name is Christina, and I'm with Atlantic Institute. Tonight, we are going to learn about conversations and communication. And we have with us Mr. Kevin Gangle. Is that how I
Yep.
say it? All
Hard
right.
G's all around.
All right. And so, for those of you joining us that haven't been on any of our Atlantic Institute programs before, we are a nonprofit based in South Carolina, and we have uh, hosted dialogue conversations for probably about 15 years or so. I have been with the organization for about 11 years, and what we do is bring people together from different backgrounds to create bridges of understanding. And one of the programs that I've learned about recently was one that Kevin runs. I'll let him tell you a little bit about it. And I thought it'd be great for us to have in a conversation so that we can learn about communication. So go ahead, Kevin, if you'd like to go ahead and take over.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. And hello, everybody. Awesome to be with you this evening. I think it's at least evening for everybody, coming on morning for a couple of you in GMT. So welcome to this. Welcome to Building Bridges. And we're going to try to explore together and start to answer this question that most of us have probably been engaged with most of our lives, which is, why is communication so difficult? Why does it have to be so hard? What the heck it is that gets in the way when we're trying to get something done with people? So we designed this conversation between Christina and I for, basically anybody who's trying to be effective with other people, whether that's, with a team at work, if it's in your community or, in your volunteer life, if that's just at home in your personal and family relationships. And we wanted to let you know that tonight was really designed to be, quite interactive. And we wanted to let you know that, we're really committed that you get significant, immediate tactical value out of this. Now, the way that you can get significant tactical value out of it, well, here's how you won't. So if you treat it like a TED Talk or a book, and it's purely informational for you, it's going to be pretty good information, I promise, right? Then it'll be, useful, interesting. You might, kind of, people say, I want to take away one thing. Um, but if you bring your actual life to it, if you bring your lived experience, what's currently happening for you, the situations that you're dealing with, the people that you're interacting with, the things that you're trying to get done in the world, and if you use your real life and your lived experience to sort of test what I'm going to say, validate what I'm going to say, use it to check it out and go, huh, is that really how that works? Or, can I see that in my relationships, my communication? Then you'll be in a position to take the tools and the concepts that we're going to explore together and start using them right away, like tonight, today, tomorrow, things like that. So we wanted to invite you to not watch. We want to invite you to participate. And we're going to invite everybody to, talk and interact. I think there's, 8 or 10 of us on the call tonight. So this is more like being in a living room and less like being in some big, auditorium where the lights are on me and Christina and everybody else is in the dark. So with that said, we wanted to ask a few people, what had you come tonight? What was interesting or intriguing about the title or the write-up? We assume there was something in there that had you click on it and register tonight. So that said, we wanted to also invite everybody, if you can, if you're in a position where you can, we'd invite you and really request that you turn on your cameras. Be awesome if we could, be with each other, and if I could see, faces and expressions and body language. And you might be in a position for whatever reason, you might be taking care of a health concern, or helping somebody else or something like that. And if you can't have your camera on for whatever reason, we totally get that. We'd like to assume that you're there and fully engaged and participating. So if your camera is going to be off, we're going to request you use lots of emojis. Thumbs up, hands up, question marks, rocket ships, fires, hearts, whatever, right? Hey, Mary, thanks for that. So if you're going to be off camera and then you use the emojis, I'll know if you're liking it or not liking it, or you're confused or getting it or whatever that is, because we really want to hear from you. And I'm going to modify, how much time we spend on different elements, based on what's most useful to you. So with that said, and then whether you're on camera or off camera, feel free to use the chat a lot. I'll try to be having a look at it, but Christina's going to keep an eye on it while I keep my attention on you. So I'd love to hear from a few people. What had you come tonight? What are you hoping for? What's going on in life that this seemed like it might be useful or interesting? Why are you here tonight? And Lisa, feel free to read stuff out, but anybody who wants, just come off, take your microphone off, and you don't have to even raise your hand or anything. There's not too many of us. Take your microphone off and just say, why'd you come tonight?
Yeah, I was going to say, Lisa commented that she wanted help to understand the thought processes of people's actions. And you
Cool.
feel free, you can say that too, but I just figured if you weren't, some people I know don't have microphones, so I figured you might not.
Yeah, people from El Paso, Texas are shy. That's what I heard about Texas. So yeah.
That's not true.
That's not true. Oh, I thought that
Don't
was
believe
true.
them, everybody. Don't believe them.
All
People
right.
from
I'm
Texas
from
are very vocal.
yeah, they're very vocal. I'm from Kansas City originally, Lisa, the Kansas side, and I lived in New Mexico before. So I don't actually think Texans are very shy, but yeah. So Lisa, you're in the right place. We're gonna give you some insight into what's going on for people that they're not saying. So that's definitely included. So good call. Yeah. Anybody else? What had you come tonight? Mary, Jillian, we got two Marys. So Ms. Beatty or Miss McLaughlin, either way.
I suppose, yeah, the conversation in that I don't like conflict.
Mm.
So I have a group of friends, but when they get together, they don't like each other.
Mm.
You know, that kind of a funny thing where I
Yeah.
bring one is on a wheelchair and I bring him for drives or whatever. But I can't bring the four together because they don't like each other.
Wow.
And that's funny
Wow.
because I like them all.
I know that's hard.
Yeah, it's like a bit of jealousy, or I don't know what it is. It's a funny
Yeah,
one.
I get
Or
that.
I feel then I'm going to withdraw
Hmm.
because I can't give 100% to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
I
hard
get
to come
that.
out and say that, that kind of a thing without a
Oh, wow.
conflict. I don't like conflict.
Yeah, I don't like conflict either, by the way. So, Mary, one of the things I did in my life is I went and I got certified as a mediator and a negotiator. I took about 600 hours of formal, intense conflict resolution training. And I did that. And a bunch of people who take that training is because they hate conflict.
Good idea, yeah.
I got a quick question for you. Did these four friends, did they used to like each other and something happened, or did they never like
No,
each
no, they would have just met up through me,
other? Okay, got it.
kind of through COVID. That's how we kind of got together, and then
Okay.
introduced them to each other. But
All
they
right, I
seem to
got that.
find fault with each other, where I don't see the fault because I like them individually.
Yeah. Okay, good. And I get the discomfort and the limitation it is not being able to bring them together. So you keep those four people and those dynamics in mind as we go through stuff. Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you.
Yeah, anybody else either just come off a mute or put it in the chat. What had you come tonight? All right, we needed more Texans. Everybody's being a little shy. No problem. So, well, let me start talking a little bit, but I'd request, as you think about like, well, yeah, what am I hoping to get out of tonight? Just go ahead and put that in the chat. And by the way, everybody, as I talk, Christina might interrupt me. I'd invite you to ask questions as we go. And again, just put your hand up and we'll call on you, or you can put it in the chat as well. So either way, bring to mind some important relationships for you. Bring to mind the people that you're trying to get stuff done with. That includes people where it's, working really well. And you might have people in your life where things are working like, okay, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And you might have some situations, kind of like Mary's where there's a real breakdown and she can't bring these people together. Now I've seen that around the Christmas, dinner table, and I've seen that at work, and I certainly see it in politics and, when I'm out in communities. So, all right. So here's the first concept I want to give you. What I do for a living, by the way, is I work with leaders and teams and organizations in companies, in not-for-profits, in all three levels of government, really in community. And I work with people who are trying to get something done. And they're often dealing with really fast, intense change, or they're dealing with a lot of pressure coming from different directions, trying to get things done and satisfy a lot of different people at the same time. And a lot of the people I work with, they're trying to, I would call it, disrupt the status quo. There's a way things are going in the family, in the team, in the company, in the government. And they're like, I don't like the future that we're going to get to if we stay on this track. I want this future. How the heck do I shift like a group of people to go after something completely different? Okay. So here's what I would say are the 3 ways that any human being mostly tries to get stuff done. So hold on, I just lost my view of everybody when I tried to do something there. So when people try to change, get better, grow, do something different, there's 3 basic places that they go. The first place they go is the world of information. Everybody knows this world pretty well. If you've been to kindergarten or 1st grade or 12th grade, or you got a university degree or whatever, if you've ever been to school or church, you probably got a lot of information from people. The world of information works that somebody who's the expert tonight, who's in control, who's the one at the chalkboard, it's me, isn't it? Maybe it's Christina. If I do a bad job, Christina will probably give me the hook and she'll step in and do a good job, right? But there's somebody at the front of the room who's supposed to have all the answers, and they tell you what the right answers are, and they give you a test. And if you get the test right, you get a gold star, or you go to the front of the class, you get an A, or you get a scholarship or something like that. That's how you win in the world of information. Anybody recognize that one? Now, information is incredibly useful. When I go to the dentist, I don't want them to have the book open next to it that's called Dentist for Dummies. And they go, give me the machine that goes, rrr, 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 rrr. I want them to have lots and lots of information. When I got in an airplane, I want the pilot to know what all the buttons and levers do. So information is incredibly valuable, except where it's not. Have you ever noticed that there's situations that you're in where more information doesn't help or even just makes it worse? See, one of the jokes I'm like to make it, I don't know if anybody like me, I'm not at my ideal weight right now. I've lost, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 pounds recently. I'm pretty happy about that. And I'd like to lose 5 more. Now, do you think I'm missing any information about how to lose weight? I'm 55 years old. My joke is I got 2 kids. They're 21 and 18, and I still have my baby weight. And I didn't have the babies. But the only information I need to know is eat better, move different. That's literally all it is. You could put on one tiny little sticky note, and I've known that for a long time. See, you know what to do. You have the right information when you have a conflict with a friend or a family member. Apologize, take full responsibility. 2-step program. Now, the next time you get in an argument, are you going to use the information? Maybe, maybe not, right? So, and most of the information you've got in your life, most of it you've forgotten by now. So information is incredibly powerful when it's in the right place and applied the right way. But anywhere where you're kind of stuck in a loop, hitting a glass ceiling, bumping up against a brick wall, having the same conversation over and over again, more information isn't going to help. That's why you give people good advice and they ignore it, don't they? Jillian, do people ignore your good advice all the time? I suspect they do, right? Yeah, I ignore most of the advice. So here's the second way. This isn't better or worse, but it's distinct. It's the world of experience. You go out in the world and you try stuff. You use your senses, you fail, you succeed, you try it out, you interpret, you bring your perspective, you get muscle memory. The best example of this is learning to ride a bike. So just you show your virtual hands if you're off camera, but who knows how to ride a bike? Now, you didn't learn balance. You discovered balance. Balance can't be learned. That's why if you've ever tried to teach a child to ride a bike, at some point, I can almost guarantee they got mad at you. Why does a child get mad at you when you teach them to ride a bike? Because you tell them things, you give them information, and they still fall down, and then you give them different information and they fall down, and then you give them different information and they fall down. They go, why are you giving me all this stupid information, mom or dad? Clearly you got bad information. Because you literally can't teach balance. You can only experience and discover balance. Fall down, fall down, fall down, stand up. You can't explain why, and you can't give it to anybody else. So experiential learning isn't better, but it goes in deeper and it lasts longer. You don't forget balance the way that you forget your times tables or the periodic table or whatever it is. So here's the third way. This is the world of context. And Lisa, you said filters, so you anticipated that one was coming up. So this is the world of, mental models, paradigms, worldviews. You could call it anything like that. Now, everybody, if you look, a context shift is a natural human phenomenon. All of you have experienced context shifts in life, at least probably a handful of times. So I had a context shift when my daughter was born, our first child, 21 years ago. And I'd read this book called What to Expect When You're Expecting All the Information, right? And it's not very useful once you have an actual child. And then I'd had the experience of being with my wife and, there through the whole, kind of 22 hours of labor in that case and all those things. So I'd had that experience. I hadn't experienced being a father yet. And then I was holding my child for the first time and my wife was getting taken care of and the doctors and nurses had faded into the background. It was just the two of us. And I'm holding this bundle and I'm just wrapped. I'm stunned, right? And there's nothing in my brain. I'm at complete peace and serenity. It's quiet in here for the first time in I don't know how long. And into that silence, a thought intruded. And the thought was, oh shit, 2050, what are we going to do? The year was 2003. And in that thought, in an instance, like a lightning bolt, I became responsible for the future of the whole world. Why? There was a shift. I didn't plan the shift. I wasn't looking for the shift. I didn't ask for the shift. It just happened. See, up until literally that moment, the world had been flawed, but acceptable. It's going okay. We're doing all right. I got my little patch, right? I'll take care of my child, my wife, my family. But suddenly the world was no longer suitable. There was a second shift in that moment. It took me a little longer to figure that one out. And the shift was the future, quote unquote, the future up until then had been about 2 or 3 years. Next car, next career move, what are we going to do with the yard? How are we going to decorate that room? Stuff like that. The future was actually very small. Everything after that was completely conceptual. And suddenly it was like real, like the hands in front of my face. Now, all of you have had moments. Sometimes they're the good moments like that. Sometimes they're the bad moments. You make it through a car crash or cancer, or somebody that you know and love makes it through, or somebody you know and love doesn't make it through. It's those moments when life impacts you, positive or negative. Life impacts you so hard that you're just pushed back. You're like, oh my gosh, that's what matters. This is how it works. And you never get over those moments. Now, mostly that happens randomly, untimed, unplanned, so you get what you get. If you look in your life, you know people who've had those moments and they emerged bigger, stronger, more full of possibility. And you probably know people in life who emerge from those moments smaller, more scarred, more scared, or more weak. And it can go either way because you don't know when it's coming. Now, what if you could take the power of a contextual shift? I would call that a personal transformation. And you could point it where and when you want. Well, if you were going to do that, you'd have to start to explore this world of context. So contextual learning, context shifts, is not better or worse than experience, not better or worse than information, but it sure as heck is different. So here's a quick analogy for context. I'll read this slide out for you. I'll show it at the same time. There's 2 young fish swimming along and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way. He nods to them and he says, "Morning, boys. How's the water?" And the 2 younger fish keep swimming on for a bit. And eventually one of them looks over to the other fish and he goes, "What's water?" Fish don't know they're in water, as far as I know anyway. They've always been in water. They've never not been in water. What the heck is not water? That's all there is. So water to fish, air to birds, context to human beings. Human beings swim around in context all the time. See, coming to this talk on Zoom is a different context for you than if we were live and in the same room together, is it not? You're going to act a little bit different, speak up more, speak up less, right? Things like that. See, having a conversation with somebody in a meeting room at work is different than having a conversation over coffee in the morning around the family, kitchen table. There's a different context, being in America than being in Canada. I'm living in my 3rd country right now, and there's cultural contexts that are different. My wife is Chinese Canadian, and she grew up in a different cultural context than I grew up, in a white, small town America. Now, there's nothing wrong or good or bad about any of that, but mostly we don't know how to account for context. Right, so let's switch this to what you came for. That's the basis of it all. How does that apply to communication? I'm going to show you a slide. It's got a big diagram. It's got a bunch of words on it, so you don't have to absorb it all at one time. But this slide is going to point to the various components of communication that are there anytime you're talking to somebody. And it points to the different components of conversation or communication that you could influence. Okay. So bring to mind those actual human beings and the actual situations that you're dealing with and apply that to this slide. So I'll walk you through this. There's a bunch of stuff on here. So I'll start up at that blue level. The blue level is stuff that you can see and point to. It's kind of easy. When somebody talks, they almost always have a position or an opinion or a way that they think things should be, right? So I said rules, but that's kind of like opinions, regulations, literal rules, laws. This is how it should be. And my opinion is this is what we need to do. So anybody who's, voting for anything, they have a position, or they're voting for somebody who has a position. Your boss has a position about how you should do things or how you shouldn't do things. When you were little, your parents sure as heck had positions. And if you're a parent now, you got positions about how your kids should do stuff and what they should and shouldn't do. So a lot of the content of the conversations we have to do with somebody's position, the should or the shouldn't, or the way it's supposed to go. It could be as simple as their opinion. Now that next box is also, well, what should we do about that? I think we should do this. I think we should do that. I think you should do this. I think you shouldn't do that. Here's the best way to get things done. Yeah,
One
Christine.
question, Kevin. Are you sharing your screen? Because are you just speaking? There's no shared.
This whole time I have not been sharing the screen. Is that what you're
No.
saying?
Yeah, because
Oh,
you just
well,
said the
that's good to
screen
know.
and the blue line, and I was like, there's no there. Okay.
All right. Well, there's the first one. We talked about all that one already. So,
See, I didn't know you
Propaganda
were
of that
supposed to
one.
have that on there. So
all right. So here's the one I started talking about. Thank you. Oh my goodness. So that was useful. All
sorry.
right. Is that better?
Yep, that's good.
See, my context this whole time, everybody was like, you can see what I see. How could you not see what I see? That's impossible. We're all looking at the same thing, right?
No, and only just now as I was like, no, I'm not seeing that blue thing he's talking about.
Up
Let me just
until
make
now, it
sure.
mostly made sense, right?
Yes, actually it did. So
All right. So this is more useful. So the content of people's conversations, if you look at the blue part, a lot of it is about their opinions, their positions, the rules. A lot of it about is the behavior, the actions. Here's what we should do next. We shouldn't have done that. This is how we got here. And then a lot of it is about resources. When your kids come to you and they say, I need the keys to the car and can I have $20? You know that they're ready to leave the nest, right? So this could be money, it could be time, it could be priorities in the project, it could be infrastructure, it could be human resources. So all of those components, the resources, the time, the money, the actions, the policy manual, the workbooks, the operating manual for the machines, and then everybody's beliefs and rules and opinions. Now, this second part is the stuff that you can't necessarily see, but you can tell it's happening and you can feel it. It's the world of relationships and connection and affinity. I like you, I don't like you, I trust you, I don't trust you, I think you don't trust me, right? We're getting along, we're not getting along. See, this is what Mary McLaughlin is dealing with, is relationships with these 4 people who are all good with her, but not with each other. And then there's this word power. And by power, I mean power dynamics. It could be official authority, like decision rights, or the ability to cut the check. You're the signing authority or something like that. But it could also be just influence or informal power. Who does somebody really go to on the org chart? Do they go to their boss that they're supposed to go to, or do they go to the other person? Who's working around who? Who's avoiding each other at the water cooler or the coffee machine? And then this third level is down into that mindset again. Now, mindsets, you can't really see a mindset. They're hard to name, but they have a big impact. So test this for yourself. I would guess that all of you have done the dishes by hand before, probably. And you've probably done the dishes happy in your life. And there's probably other times where you did the dishes and you were resentful because you didn't want to be doing the dishes. You want to be doing something else. And there's probably at least once in life when you did the dishes and you're mad about something. Does that track for everybody? Now, if I walk into the room and you don't say anything, can I tell which one you are? Can I tell if you're being happy or being resentful or being angry, you don't have to say a word. I can tell by how you're scrubbing.
Yep, you totally can.
Yeah, so this is the world. It's not only mindset or mental model, it's also how you're being. It's the being part of human being. You're all being a particular way in any given moment. Sometimes people are being stingy. Sometimes they're being shy. Sometimes they're being friendly. Sometimes they're being sad. So these are all things that are noticeable and they're nameable, but nobody starts out. Nobody puts them up on the table. So I'll give you a story from my conflict resolution days. This is not a real story, but it's one they told to make a point. So imagine that you are a skilled business person, somebody who looks like me, so a white guy from Canada, and you're flying over to China to do a big business deal. And it's been a long flight, 16 hours or whatever it is. They pick you up at the airport in a fancy car. They drive you straight to the meeting, no shower, no rest or anything. And you walk in, there's this big board table, and there's like 12 guys in identical suits and ties and shirts. And there's a big spotlight on this empty seat where you're obviously supposed to sit. You can kind of feel how this is going to go. So rather than walk in and just get started, imagine that you framed the conversation. So you walk in, you say, hey, everybody, I wanted to thank you for inviting me for this important conversation. I wanted to let you know I really have a deep respect for your culture, and I've been studying it. And one of the things I did is I read, one of your important books. I read The Art of War. It's an amazing book. It's all about pick your battles, attack with overwhelming force, choose the place and the time, never fight unless you know you're going to win. And I wanted to let you know if you'd like to have our negotiation, using that book as a foundation, I'd be happy to do that. I also read Confucius, another really, really important work in Chinese culture. And Confucius is all about the logic of your arguments, meritocracy, have the best good win and measure everything out against each other. If you'd like to have the conversation from that book, I'd be happy to do that too. I also read a third book. I read the I Ching, which is about universal harmony and reincarnation and, next lives, and we're all one with each other. And anything that I do to you, there's going to be reciprocal impact on me. And it's really about harmony. I'd be happy to have the conversation from that as well. Which of those three would you like to use as the basis for our conversation? So in that moment, who's got the influence? Not the 12 guys in the same suit with the spotlight that they put where they're going to put you in that situation, right? So it's very rare that any of us stop to frame the conversation or to find out what the pre-existing frame of the conversation is before we start the conversation. Human beings also lie a lot. If I walk in and you're being mad while you're doing the dishes, I go, is everything okay? You go, yep.
Right. That's where Lisa asked. She said, what if some people, she said, sometimes you put on a facade.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what
Right.
Lisa said. But I like how you even mentioned how they framed it. You walked in and took charge of that conversation with all those different options. And it was kind of like, I'm thinking if I was sitting there, I'd be like, the heck did we just have walk in the room?
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Now what am I going to do? And you can do that in friendly, loving ways in any conversation as well, or you can hit something head on, right? So here's what gets in the way, right? There's a couple things that really get in the way of being able to be effective, whether we're talking about the blue stuff or the orange stuff or the red stuff. I want to give you a couple things that get in the way, and then we'll switch to like how to listen really deeply, and then how to speak in difficult situations to be really effective and have high performance with other, those funny human beings, right? With all their filters and, all of their pretending. So here's one of the ways that we screw up a lot. One of the ways we screw up is we listen for what we're already listening for, not what they actually say. Now, why the heck would I listen for what I'm already listening for instead of what they actually say? Well, I'm not doing it on purpose. But part of the way that human beings are designed is somebody talks to me, it goes in my ear and I hear the literal actual words. And then I start having a conversation in my head about what they're saying. I like what they're saying. I don't like what they're saying. That makes sense. That doesn't make sense. That's good. That's bad. That's right. That's wrong. I like it. I don't like it. What do I need for dinner tonight? What's on the grocery list? Did I lock the door? Oh, wait a minute. What are they saying again? And then when we speak, we're often speaking not from what they said. We're not responding to what they said. We're responding to what we're saying about what they said. So check this out for yourself. Bring one of those actual human beings to mind. Think of somebody that, you've got an actual situation where there's a lack of workability or some tension or some conflict, or it's just not working the way that you want it to. So in this situation, I picked kind of a work situation, but it could be a parent or child or anything. Imagine there's a little bit of a power imbalance. And you're going to go and you're going to give your boss your best suggestion for that thing that they asked for. Now, however, you might, like another human being, walk in with a mindset already in place. You can think of a mindset as like the thought bubble in the cartoon, different than the speech bubble. The speech bubble is what we say, and the thought bubble is the part that we're thinking, but we're not saying out loud. Now, imagine that you have an opinion about somebody because you've been there before with them, you've seen them before, you've had previous conversations, and imagine you have a thought bubble called, you don't get it. Very common thought bubble amongst people right now, by the way, right? So you pick any two, companies and suppliers, bosses and employees, customer service peoples and clients, any political parties, you name it. So imagine you walk in with this thought bubble called you don't get it. And you say, hey, boss, here's my best idea for the thing. Why don't we do this? And they go, maybe. But maybe is what goes in your ears, but it also gets filtered through your context. You can imagine a context as a lens that sits between you and the world, and it shapes and colors and filters everything, right? Context, filter, same thing. So they say maybe, and what you hear on the other end of you don't get it is no. How do I know you hear no? Because that's what you tell everybody at the coffee machine when you go out. They go, how did it go with the big boss? And you go, they said maybe, but they meant no. But you're a professional, you got a big commitment, you're going to give it another try. So the next day you go back, you go, hey boss, I know you didn't like that thing yesterday. That said, I didn't say I didn't like it. Yeah, I know you didn't like it. So I came up with a new idea. How about we do this other thing? And they go, no. Well, at least they're being honest. At least they're being straight. It's an upgrade. But no gets filtered through, you don't get it. You don't get it, by the way, is a little bit bigger than yesterday, a little bit stronger than yesterday because it already happened again. So no gets filtered through, you don't get it. And what arrives for you is, here we go again. And that's how would I know? Because that's what you talk about at the water cooler. How'd it go? They said no, right? And you had, So, but you're a professional, you got a big commitment, you're paid for a job, so you're going to give it one more try. You go in the next day, you go, hey boss, I didn't know like those first two ideas. And he's like, I said maybe. And you go, well, here's my third idea. Why don't we do this? And he goes, yes. Finally, the answer you actually wanted. It's literally the answer you wanted, but yes gets filtered through, you don't get it. And what arrives on the other end is, what do you really want? What's your real agenda? When's the other shoe gonna drop? And this is one of the reasons why we don't listen well. Now, it's not just us who's not listening well, it's them too. You're a human being, you walk in with a context, they're a human being, they walk in with a context, they got their own thought bubble. Sometimes if you have a meeting of 8 people, there's 8 thought bubbles. One person's listening from you don't get it. One person's listening from this is personal. One person's listening from we tried that last time. One person's listening from it's not going to make any difference. One person's listening from I'm right, you're wrong. Anybody ever been in that meeting? All right, go collaborate. So it's worse than just one person. So this is the cycle that happens as soon as you add a second person. So they say something, right? And for you, that becomes your observable data. Your observable data is what they literally said, includes their body language, a whole bunch of other stuff. But because you're a human being and you have a context, you bring an interpretation. You bring an interpretation and you add meaning to what they said. So what they said isn't clean, it's plus the conversation you're having in your head. And then you take your next action, you respond back, not from what they said, but from their interpretation. So your action is to say something back. You've now taken action. Your action becomes for them their observable data. They now have observable data. Your body language, your tone, whether you were late or on time, whether you have the report, don't have the report, right? What you actually said, they've got observable data, but they're a human being. They have their own context, an invisible filter sitting between them and the world. They add their interpretation and their meaning. They take action not from what you said, and people do not listen to what you say, don't you? You experience it all the time. Here's why. And then they take action from their interpretation of what you said. Now, what they said becomes for you what? Next set of observable data. Run the tape. Now, if you can get into the world of mental models and worldviews and start to listen for what's unspoken and unsaid, and we'll dive into that in just a second, you could start to play around with a different context. You're like, I think we're doing Art of War right now. Maybe Confucius would be better off. Or you're like, wow, everybody's really logical and there's no emotions and people are saying my position, my opinion, your opinion, here's why it's better, beating me down with your data and your information. We're really in the world of Confucius. Maybe a little I Ching would be better off here. But one interesting context is, what's your world? Or otherwise said, what's it like to be you right now? Now, some of you on the call are pretty empathic and pretty good listeners and probably have been trained in listening, and you've got important things that you've done and accomplishments you have. So I'm not saying everybody here is a bad listener. I'm saying all human beings are bad listeners. So even if you're one of the good ones compared to the other human beings, try out their listening at 2% and you're listening at 4%. That's why you rock. And there's still 96% to go improvement. So if we start to train ourselves to get good and be good at asking ourselves kind of continually, what's it like to be you right now? And try to stay in the saddle, then we have a chance to bust up how we screw up listening the second way. We could start to get good at being really interested, really curious in somebody else's world. We call that authentic listening. If you can listen authentically, the way I'm about to lay it out for you, you can start to diffuse anybody, anywhere, anytime. And you do it by listening deeply and in a different way than we're usually trained to listen. So bring to mind, if it wasn't already in your earlier situation, somebody where there's really some tension or some conflict or some emotion. And I'm going to talk about 3 levels of listening. So I'm missing number 1 there for somehow, but all right. So let me go all the way through this. I'm going to escape out for a second. We'll do it this way. All right, we'll do get the whole thing up there. All right, that'll make more sense now. All right. So there's 3 levels at which to listen to somebody. And this is whether it's something small and just in the moment, or whether it's something that is a heated situation or something that's strategically important. So the first level of listening is to listen for the content. What they said, exactly how they said it, without adding anything, without telling them what you think, without fixing what they said. Don't add anything. Now that sounds easy, and it's actually incredibly hard. We train people across all kinds of sectors, all ages, all cultural backgrounds. And if you just did a simple exercise where somebody says something and you can record it, and then you try to say back to them the exact words they said in the exact order without adding anything, we almost always get it wrong. It's quite bizarre. Especially, have you noticed that when people talk, sometimes they go on and on and on, and you can't track past the second or third thing. So if you start to train yourself to say back to somebody what they said, exactly how they said it without adding anything, it allows their brain to calm down, because people don't actually expect you to listen to them. Why? Because the last person they talked to didn't listen to them. The last person they talked to had a conversation going on in their head that they were way more interested in what they were saying. So mostly people go through life not getting listened to. And when that happens, our brains get very suspicious and we start scanning. Are you listening to me? Are you listening to me? Are you listening to me? Where's the evidence that you're not listening to me? I'm literally expecting it, just like I expect the sun to come up. Now, when you say back to somebody what they said, how they said it without adding anything, their brain goes, oh, somebody actually listened. It actually disrupts the pattern immediately. And they don't even know it's been disrupted, but they have a little bit of a, Now, it's useful to do these in order. If you do them out of order, but you do all of them, you'll have really good results. But if you can do them in order and particularly and start to train yourself on it, it starts to be like magic. So the second thing to reflect back to them or to say back to them is something about their experience. What's it like for them? What's the emotion that's there for them? Sometimes people say, I'm angry, and then you're like, okay, you're angry. But usually we don't say the emotion, but there's always an emotional experience at some level, even if it's calm, right? This is useful for the world of metaphor. You could even start to say, it sounds like you feel trapped. It sounds like for you, this is an unwinnable situation. That sounds like it's really unfair. Now, you don't want to make anything up, but if you're listening to people, you're like, oh, I've been in that situation. I've felt that. And it's okay to speculate a little bit because their brain already knows you heard what they said and they can let a little bit in. And if you get even anywhere close to the emotion or the experience or the right metaphor, they'll go, no, it's not like that. It's like this. Our brains can't help but correct it. Why? Because we're dying to have you get my experience. We're just dying to have each other get each other's experience. And then once you've gotten that part, the third level is to say something to them about what their deepest commitment or their deepest need is. Now, this is a little bit harder and it takes some practice because I guarantee they're not going to have said this part out loud. Very rarely do we say what we really need. We'll give our opinion, we'll give our position. That's our solution to what we need, but it's not the thing itself. If somebody comes to you and says, I need money, what they need is not money. The money is a means to an end for something that they actually need. Now, if you give them money, is that going to solve their problem? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Because we don't even know what the heck the problem is. Maybe what they needed is a sandwich and you got one, and the sandwich store is 15 minutes away for they can go spend the $5 you just gave them. So their commitment is one of a couple things. It might be like a real physical, almost survival-based need, food, warmth, comfort, safety, something like that. And that does happen from time to time, certainly. But usually the commitment is at the level of a belief or a value or some future that they're striving for. It's like what really, really matters to them, right? So Lisa, let's see. Let me go with, Christina, let me interact with you for a minute. Somebody else, if you want to jump in, go ahead and do it. So Christina, I am worried about my employee who lives near Miami because there's a hurricane going on. Frankly, I'm more worried about you because you're closer to Atlanta. So Christina, give it a try. What did I say?
So you said, Christina, frankly, I'm worried about an employee that I have that lives close to Miami. And then you said, but I'm worried about you because you're closer to Atlanta.
Yeah, pretty close, right, everybody? That's good. And my brain's like, oh, she actually listened. Huh, first time all day. That's nice. And then what would you say, what's while I'm speaking, in the speaking of it, what's it like for me when I'm talking?
What is it like for you?
Yeah.
You have some emotion in there of concern.
Yeah. See, Ray, that's really good because I literally said the word worry, but I'm not like worried. Concern is actually a better word for what it's like for me. That's really good listening from Christina. I'm like, yeah, I am concerned. Now then, Christina, what's my commitment behind all that? Which I don't think I said, but what would you guess? Like what's deep down important to me that Miami and you and Atlanta and hurricane and worried and
I think your commitment is genuinely wanting to help, to figure out how, make sure you're okay and genuinely how to help.
yeah, really good.
Yeah.
Now see it. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say where I was looking at this as you were speaking, and I was thinking, where is my connection to this? Is the content part would be with my teenagers.
Yeah.
When I'm telling somebody else something that they told me, and my daughter will forever go, Mom, let me tell it because you never say it exactly how I told you, because what I'm hearing them say is I'm relaying to somebody else kind of what I understood about what they said. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, that's where I could really improve. And is listening to my kids is like when they say something and relaying it to somebody else exactly how they said it.
Cool. Now, good. Now, if so, you be your teenager and say that little snippet, Mom, let me do it or whatever. Just say it like your teenager says it, and I'll try to get it in this model.
Right. Yeah, Mom, you should go ahead and let me speak because you really are screwing this up and not giving them appropriate information.
Okay, well, I should let you speak because I'm screwing up and not giving them appropriate information. And by the way, I think it's like killing you every time I do that. And you're just like rolling your eyes and dying a little bit over there at how lame I am about it. And it sounds like it's important to you that they get the straight goods and they get it from the source. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So somebody that's not me and Christina, how did I do getting her at those 3 levels? Good, bad? What do you think? If you were, let me ask it this way too. If you were the teenager, would you go, huh, mom actually gets it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're off camera, everybody use your emojis or your thumbs up, and then we'll know we'll do it again. By the way, we didn't prep that or stage that or anything. So let's throw it over to our audience. Does anybody want to try this? You could be the person and I could practice getting you, or you could practice getting it. We'd like you to be able to, apply this to real life. So does anybody want to use a scenario? Right. If you
I was
don't, get to
thinking-
the Q&A faster, but we want to give everybody a chance. So yeah, Christina, what are you going to say?
Well, I was thinking Lisa said no employees to work. So I was thinking Lisa might be a good one to share a scenario, because it sounds like you have a scenario in mind, but it's not related to employees working. It's related to something else.
Well, I think what with the context of that was like the concern of, an employee, you in
Ah.
Atlanta, and then the employee in Florida, as a supervisor, as a manager, you're thinking like, who's gonna man, who's gonna hold the fort down? That's what I was like kind of
Very
going
true,
through.
very true.
As far as
A really good boss, I think,
But-
is going to care more about, but yes, but other bosses tend to just who's going to work, who's going to do the job. Yes.
And that's good,
Yeah.
Lisa. And then the trick is to, depending on the person in the moment, you don't know until they start talking, because one person might be like, hey, who's gonna take care of the shop, and the other person might be like, you okay, right?
Right. And I think like the caveat for that would be how they're concerned, like how they express the concern, like, do you have food? Do you have shelter? Are you safe? I think it would be like the follow-up questions afterwards of the true concern versus like, oh, well, who's gonna work? Who's gonna man the phone? Who's gonna work tomorrow or whatever, So I think it could have gone like both ways, but that was the first thought in my head. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, who's gonna work tomorrow?
Well, that's really good, because as you practice getting people the way that we're laying it out, then the conversation's obviously going to continue. It's not like a one-time thing. But once they like, oh, you got what I said, and you kind of like walked a mile in my shoes, like, oh, and oh, that is the important thing. See, then the next question is going to be a deeper, richer, more useful question. And it's going to open out to, it's like, oh, well, what are we going to do about the storm? And what are we going to do about the store? But it's happening from a basis of being really strongly related to each other and really understanding each other. So the rest of the conversation gets much easier.
Right. Exactly. So, but I'll do another one if you want me to. That's fine.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm a team player. So another situation that we could think of is, let's say, you're communicating to your boss, that you have to take sick leave, because you have a major thing that needs to happen, and then they're concerned about your numbers, and they are just like, well, how are you going to conclude your numbers, get your clients in, or whatever. Is more about the numbers,
Cool, yeah.
and you're concerned about your health. And that's
Okay,
happened
good.
to me several times, and especially now I'm going through a situation where my health is like utmost important, but the supervisor is still thinking of the numbers.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So in this situation, you're the employee who has a health concern and you're speaking to a supervisor who's concerned about numbers.
Right.
Okay, good. Okay, cool. All right. So this is good, everybody, because Lisa not only has a need to get her supervisor, she has something she needs to get communicated, because there's 2 sides to this conversation, right? So this next slide,
Right.
Lisa, has basically the same thing. It's going to say content, experience, commitment. I color coded it, and then it's going to have 2 sides of the conversation. Okay. So when you're in
Okay.
a dialogue and you want to get something communicated, they need to get you and you need to get them. So you want to start with getting them. they didn't get to come to this presentation, right? And they don't know that they
Right.
need to listen to you at 3 levels. So it's going to be your job to get listened to at 3 levels. So you start the same way we did that. So first you're going to say, hey, boss, I have some health concerns, and I have some requests of you. But before I do that, I think that you've got some concerns about numbers and production and metrics. I think that's accurate, right? And then you're going to say, I want to get from you, like, how are we doing? How am I doing? You know, tell me a little bit about how you think it's going so far so I can make appropriate requests. You're going to let them go first, which is not how most people do it, right?
Right.
And
Yeah,
then they're
because
going
you
to
usually, our tendency, I guess, is to like me. This is what I need. This is what I need.
Yeah. See, a boss is expecting, their context is, my employees are going to walk through my door all day and they're going to go, me. Why does nobody care about what I need as the boss?
Right.
That's most bosses, even the good bosses, by the way. I've been a boss. I'm a pretty good boss. You just expect people to come in and go, solve my problem, solve my problem, solve my problem. You're like, oh my God, right? So you go,
Right.
hey boss, I got some requests, and it's related to my health. But before I do, I wanted to find out how you think my performance is going and how you think the numbers are, so I can make appropriate requests to get me and you both taken care of. That's a little bit like,
Okay.
hey, I want to talk about Confucius and I Ching. And they're like, oh, you're coming in proactively to ask me how okay, great. And then they're going to say stuff, right, Lisa? And then
Yeah.
whatever they say, just like the last slide, you want to get what they said, how they said it, don't add anything. Their experience, nervous, worried, concerned, cautious, you know, whatever it is. And then you want to get their commitment, which is going to be something about performance, right? Or by the way, it could be performance, it could be reputation. Maybe their ass is on the line for something, like, who knows? You want to just listen for all of that. And then you want to go,
Right.
okay, so you said blah, 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 and you're being a little cautious here, and you're maybe a little worried I'm going to ask for something crazy. And you got a real commitment to me and my health and our team numbers. And, you know, I heard you say that thing about the quarterly report, and you know what the big bosses in Dallas need or whatever, right? I'm making stuff up now, right, Lisa? And then you want to say, great, anything I'm missing? And then you run through this as many times until they get to empty. By the way, the power of this, we've had an HR manager of a big $80 million not-for-profit save $100,000 in 20 minutes just with these 3 steps. It was a 2-year union dispute, and they've been brought in with them and the union person. They brought in a professional mediator. They were doing something called shuttle mediation. Like, you know, you have a hotel shuttle. Shuttle mediations when you're not allowed to be in the same room together because you're not safe to talk to each other, and the mediator shuttles back and forth. And she had this model. I gave her 7 minutes of coaching, and she texted the union guy. She said, hey, can we talk in the hallway for a minute? He's like, fine. Right. And she's like, hey, I realized I had this thought called this is personal. I don't know if it's personal or not, but it seems personal. And my other thought is there can only be one winner, and we're probably both going to lose. So I want to just ask, can I ask you a question? He's like, fine. She goes, is it personal? And he goes, you want to know if it's personal? She goes, yeah, I want to know. And then he told her really loudly for 2 or 3 minutes why it was personal. And because she's had some of this training, she could stay in this house. She's like, okay, I got that. What else? He's like, oh, here's what else. And he told her, still pretty loud, not quite as loud, right? And she got that. And she goes, okay, what else? He's like, well, here's some other stuff. And now he's starting to talk in a normal voice. She said, what else, for 20 minutes? That's a long time to stay in the saddle. Most of us can't do it for 2 minutes, right? But once you see the magic of getting people, and they go, oh, and eventually people go, shh, and they're like, that's it. So at the end of 20 minutes, she goes, what do you want to do? He goes, I think we could settle it for $5,000. It was an $80,000 dispute. So it went from 80,000 to 5,000. She goes, when do you want to sign it? He goes, let's do it today. They signed it right then and there. They sent home the mediator, who they booked for 3 more days at $8,000 a day. That's another $24,000, saved $99,000 in 20 minutes. Just by getting people. All right, going back to Lisa, she's going to get her boss, content, experience, commitment. Then she's going to go, let me share with you my commitments. And then when it's your turn to speak, you're going to do the exact same spaces, but you're going to do them in the opposite order. You're going to say, here's your commitment. By the way, here's what I value about your commitment. And here's another commitment that I have that you didn't mention. Now, how you know you got to the level of commitment is because there's nothing to argue about. See, the commitment is free of opinion. You just value performance, and your boss values performance too. You got different content solutions for what to do about the performance, but you both have a commitment to performance. You both have a commitment to personal health too. Yours, theirs, the team's, right? So you share your commitment and their commitment. You share what your feelings are, what you're excited about, what you're worried about, what you're nervous about, right? And then you share the content of what you think the solutions could look like. But your solutions aren't going to be the position you walked in with. Your solutions are going to be what would solve for their commitments and your commitments as a big solution that takes care of all of it. So I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to do a check-in. So first of all, Lisa, was that useful? Lisa's managing what's going on in the car too, I know. So
Sorry, could you repeat that?
yeah, I just wanted to check in with you and see if that was useful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know what? It makes a lot of sense as far as responding and you know, getting their feedback and stuff like that. Because I agree with you as far as like, you know, me, but when you start like putting them first, you know, like any like, you know, mediation 101, then you know, you can kind of like negotiate in a way where everybody wins, you know, because if not, everybody's gonna lose. I used to be a union steward, and
Ah,
that's exactly like what it was all about, you know, was trying to negotiate like, okay, well, how can we all be winners here? And so I think it's really important for us to look at that, but like in every aspect. And you know, I've worked in so many different industries in law enforcement and stuff like that, where you try to use you know, de-escalation instead of escalation. And what is the de-escalation? You know, like even if, you know, you're responding to you know, a 911 call, if you're you know, you're always trying to diffuse the situation to, you know, make it lower. And so I think that's really important. But this is actually really good information. Thank you so much.
yeah, you're welcome. And everybody, this is the best defuse the situation content we know. And my co-founder Lisa, you know, helped build the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police's hostage negotiation piece, and it includes concepts like this that are very advanced stuff. But literally anybody can use them. You can use them around the dinner table. You can use it to figure out what movie you want to watch, you know, tonight, you know, with the family, any of those things. So Christina, let me check in with you. We've been going for about an hour. I could talk for a long time about a variety of these things. Do you
No,
want
I
to check
know.
in with the folks? Do you want to start to wrap up? What do you say works?
I think we can go ahead and do some questions and answers might be good. I don't know. I'm curious if anything, and Mary was curious if anything that you got here, and I'll just let her in the waiting room. I'm curious to see if there's any light bulbs that went off, but I was just gonna add before that some of this stuff is important to go like practice these things, like you were saying, like with your family, like people that you know that you can practice with. It reminded me of where I used to work in Florida years ago. They valued their employees' lives and making sure their employees were whole, as to the best of their abilities. And we had 6 years I worked there. We had to practice different relationship things every month, different things. And so you were not, at one point, 1 month, you were not allowed to go in and ask somebody, "Hi, how are you?" Because that's just fine. Okay, good. And then you're done. So that's a meaningless conversation. So I remember I opened the door to another side business that my boss had, and the girl that just sells chemicals online, you know, that's all, you know, she was very good at catching you if you said, "Hi, how are you?" or "Hey, good morning, how are you?" You know. And so I remember I opened the door and I looked at her and I couldn't think of anything. And I looked at her and she looked at me and I went, "How are the chemicals today?" And she just looked at me and she went, "They are fine, I'm pretty sure," you know? And I went, "Okay, good." And I closed the door and left out there. And I just remember like I had to use that in our class. I
Right.
was like, I froze because it was just so normal and natural for me to say, "Hi, how are you?" You know, because we don't really care really how the other person is. So we had to come up with something else. And so like you're gonna bugger up content, experience, commitment.
Mhm.
You know, so like Mary, I was thinking before Mary starts to practice this with her friends, it's good to, right, yes, you had to go from the superficial, no more superficial conversations. You know, you got to learn some of your relationships, you had superficial relationships, and some you want deep, meaningful relationships, you know? And so I learned, like, I'm thinking, Mary, before you go to your friends and you start having conversation, practice this with your spouse or your neighbor first. And just even tell them, I need to practice some conversation. You know, will you be my guinea pig? You know, because you'll open the door and just say, how are the chemicals? You know,
Yeah, really good. Really
totally.
good.
Yeah.
You can also practice just by you can practice by listening to other people have conversations, and you can listen for their opinions and positions. And then you can listen for like, huh, how's that person feeling? How's that person feeling? How's that person? And then you can listen for like, what are they not saying? That's the deep down part. And you'll notice that the two people talking, mostly they just stay at point one. Content, 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 content. You'll probably notice that. But you can use it passively to just listen and then try it out with people in low stress, low stakes situations, right? What do you pineapple on pizza? Yes or no? Whatever, right? So little stuff. It works everywhere. Yeah.
And
So
it feels, yeah,
yeah, go
it
ahead.
feels weird to say it sometimes, to change the way we verbalize things just because it's not the natural way we're taught. We're taught to speak about ourselves.
Mhm.
But after you do it for a while, it's kind of refreshing.
Yeah.
You know, and because so few do it, so many that you do it with find it very refreshing.
Refreshing is the perfect word. And use all your conversational skills, everybody. You can say, what's that like for you for number two? You don't have to, or you're like, well, wow, what's the part of that that really matters to you? Or, what is upsetting about that? You got lots of great, language skills and words. We're giving you the structure so you can know what to listen for. And then there's a million different ways to say things at each one. So they have the experience of being gotten. You don't need a script. Yeah. So Mary, anything for you? Christina was kind of throwing it back to you. Anything that you saw about your group of friends and anything useful?
No, I was just thinking of the listening there. I met a friend yesterday for coffee, and I just kind of kept saying to myself, listen to her, listen, don't butt in and say, oh gosh, that happened to me last week, or that happened to a friend of mine. I thought, listen. And it was good then at the end of it because she texted me back, oh, it was great to talk and all that. I don't think I talked hardly at all, maybe 5 minutes out of the 2
Good for
hours.
you.
So it's the training, isn't it? You have to train yourself. Don't butt
Yeah,
in. Yeah.
perfect. It's great.
Yeah. Now I would say with the friend, nearly the two of them on the same night, or maybe 2 nights apart. What's the text me? Did I do something wrong?
Mm,
That you're I suppose you're not as committed a friend as you used to be, this sort of thing. And both of them said it, in the same.
well,
Yeah, because I suppose for me it was handier. I could bring the four of them for a drive, where now they have to be separate drives. I have to bring
yeah,
them on because they don't get on. And
yeah,
these are women in their 50s,
yeah,
60s. It's
yeah,
not
yeah,
children I have with me.
yeah. I get it. I get it. But
So,
you keep listening for those deep down unspoken parts, and then you might see an opportunity to do something that would smooth all that over.
yeah. Instead of withdrawing, you see, that's what I
Yeah,
tend to do instead of say, well, I did text back and say, I can't divide myself in 20 pieces. I have
yeah,
work as well. I have a home life. I can't see everyone every week.
yeah.
The
But
demand a
that's and
lot, I
that's
suppose.
accurate. So you didn't lie, but it's a little bit of pretending because it's not the full answer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of the elephant in the room.
Yeah, and then everybody pretends there's not an elephant, and then nobody's going to say anything because nobody else said anything, and then we're all
Yeah.
pretending and like, oh, blah, blah.
It's like Christmas time, isn't it?
It's like Christmas time,
Right.
the worst Christmas. Yeah.
Very like Christmas. Yeah. And then there's drink involved at Christmas, which makes it worse.
I get it.
So
Absolutely.
it does.
Yeah.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you.
I was thinking you have quite the social calendar. I cannot divide myself.
Yeah. I also wanted to when she was talking, when Mary was talking right now about texting and stuff like that. I was recently in the hospital and my friend said, "Oh, what happened?" And we're in a group chat, but he was texting me, individually. And then he said, "Oh, blah 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 happened." And then I said, "And here I am, in the hospital, just waiting for somebody to decide what they're gonna do with me." And then he responded, "Oh, obviously I'm bothering you, so I'll talk to you later." And he hasn't texted me since. And in the group chat, I give everybody the updates or whatever, right? But I think it was like the non-emotional part, because sometimes people say that I'm rude or that I'm blunt, but I think he didn't, since we were texting and he didn't hear the like, well, here I am, the sarcasm, of like the hospital. I wonder if he felt like that I was being sarcastic towards him or
Yeah.
something like that. And so I think we lose a lot when we don't have that one-on-one. So Mary, I really commend you for that. But a lot of times when we're texting and we try to use the emojis and stuff like that, but even then you still lose like some of the context. And so he hasn't texted me, not even like, "Hey, I hope you feel better." And he's like my favorite. He's my favorite friend.
Yeah.
But
He
I
made
mean,
some up, right?
yeah, exactly. And so I don't know how to, reconcile that. But I already have enough stuff. And on the group chat, I just said, "I'm sorry. I was really stressed. If I offended anybody, please forgive me." And that's it. I'm not going to linger over it or anything else. And, it is what it is. And he has his own filters of why he was offended. But I really do believe it's the whole loss of that emotional piece of like my sarcasm or whatever, and I think maybe he interpreted it as me being sarcastic towards him. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. It's a done deal.
Well, see, even that simple one, his text said, "Oh, I must be bothering you," I think, right? That was the content, right? And then how do you think he was feeling when he texted, "Oh, I must be bothering you"?
Well, like all my friends are really concerned about my health and so I think there's like a lot of fear. And he like I'm his favorite. He's always buying me gifts and he's my favorite. And I don't know, maybe he wanted me to be more I don't know how to say it. I want to say juicy, but it's not juicy, like more fluffy or more
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and I was just my sarcastic self. So
Yeah.
maybe, he wanted a little more fluff. And I was just like, "I'm right here, here I am. They don't know what to do with me, because I
Yeah.
was frustrated too. So I think like the whole group of friends that we hang out, they're all very concerned. But
Yeah.
like, since we have a special relationship, he's like extra concerned. But I really believe it was like that emotional disconnect for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. But then what you want to do in that situation, Lisa, you want to take a minute to put yourself in his shoes and think in that very moment that he texted, "Oh, I must be bothering you." That's the content. In the moment of him hitting send, how did he probably feel? Embarrassed? Worried?
Yeah, I think more worried. I think it came from a place of worry, not necessarily embarrassment. Because with my friends we really don't get embarrassed, but I
Yeah.
think it came from more of a place of worry or fear
Okay.
for me.
So
Yeah.
worry and fear. And then what is his commitment down underneath the worry and fear? What's he committed to?
Well, what is he committed to? I guess it would be more the friendship, yeah, more the friendship that we have.
Yeah.
You know, like he's like my best friend amongst them, you know. And
Yeah.
so I think it's more like the commitment of that. And so I guess he like wanted more emotional
Yeah.
attachment to it. You know, I
Yeah.
think that's
Perfect.
what it was. And you know, I'm not sorry for it, but I was frustrated. Then that's why I put it on the chat. I was like, well, I was reading and reading over the text and reading it over, and I was like, well, what did I say or what did I do?
Yeah. Really good.
And so that's like in the group text. I just put that, and everybody was like, oh, don't worry about it. You know, we know you're stressed or you know whatever. So it was like moot, you know. But I read it and read it. I was like, well, what did I say wrong? What did I do? You
Yeah.
know.
See, really good.
But yeah, most definitely. Excuse me.
You didn't.
I'm getting inside the house, but I'm still listening.
Yeah, no, it's great. And you look like you arrived to wherever you're going. So in any situation like that, and everybody, even if it's a small communication, if we, even though everybody says, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it, it's not a big deal, fine. But that gets swept under the rug just a little bit. And the next time we sweep a little bit more under the rug, just a little bit, and eventually there's a lump, isn't there? And then everybody knows there's a lump, white elephant, and we all pretend. So even with these small communications, if you can get practiced at getting that communication completed with somebody, you're like, hey, when you texted that thing, I just wondered maybe you were feeling a little hurt, or maybe you were wanting more emotion from me. I don't know. But I wanted to let you know that I really got that you're committed to our friendship, and so am I. Can we have a redo?
Oh, that's a good idea. Like, cause I was like he's my best friend, and I was all like, you know, how do I reconcile that? And
Yeah,
especially since like I feel like I mean, I was being sarcastic, but I'm always sarcastic. I felt like, oh, what did I do? Like, what did I do wrong?
yeah,
And so I kind of felt like in a way that it was moved because, you know, the other people responded and they were like, oh, it's okay. We know you're stressed, you know, da, da, da,
yeah,
whatever. And then, but I mean, I don't want to lose that friendship that we have, you know,
yeah,
that bond, you know, because then it adds like a little wedge. And then the
yep,
pink elephant, like Mary was saying, you know, and then it adds a wedge. And then, oh, then all of a sudden it seems like us as human beings we start being more keen to those things, and then the wedge gets
yeah,
bigger and bigger. Did you see how she said this? Did you see how she
yeah,
did that? You know, and I just wanted to be like erased. You know, I
yeah,
wanted to go away.
exactly. Get
And
that wedge out of
so that's
there, right?
good. Yeah, like can we do a do-over? For
Yeah,
sure. And so like
perfect.
should I text it to him or like wait till we meet in person? We usually celebrate our birthdays once a month. We get together and so what do you
Give him
suggest?
a
Like,
5 minute call sometime in the next like 24 or 48 hours.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
jump on it
yeah,
while it's hot.
okay, yeah, yeah, that's good. In
Yeah.
Spanish, they have a saying that says, like, jump on it while it's kind of like jump on it while it's hot, but it says while the bread is hot.
Oh, cool. Say it in Spanish.
So, ahorita que está el pan caliente, so like hot bread.
Okay, cool. Perfect. 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 All right. That's your marching orders, everybody. Do what Lisa's doing. So, all right. Awesome. Any other questions from anybody? Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Mary. Super useful. Anything else for anybody? All
Um,
right. Awesome.
yeah,
If
I was gonna
anybody
say,
wants to get in touch, there's my contact information. I'm on LinkedIn, happy to, continue the conversations or, reach out. So Christina, how do you want to wrap up?
yeah, thank you very much. Kevin, I appreciate you spending time with us and talking with us. So this is recorded and some of you guys, I'll send you a copy of that recording. So I appreciate you all taking your time to be here. I know, Mary, it's early in the morning, and I know for Oslam, it's early in the morning as well. So I would like to go ahead and respect everybody's time. It's 8:19 where I'm at. Will I AOL it to you? Does that mean like I'll email it? Like I can email it to you if that's what you mean for AOL.
Yeah.
Because All right. And so if you would like to, I usually let
Yes,
everybody know. if you-
sorry.
Go ahead. You can unmute yourself. You can put your video on if you'd like to say thank you to Kevin personally. I always give everybody that option. If you've been quiet the whole time, you can feel free to unmute yourself now at the end and tell them thank you. Go ahead, Lisa. Did you have something to add?
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was trying to type, got distracted. Yeah, so if you could email us the information, that would be great. I would really appreciate that. And thank you so much, Kevin, for your time. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Appreciate you too.
Yes, as long as you register with us through Eventbrite, I have your email. So I can send that to you. All right. So Jillian, thank you very much for being on here. I know you played part of the game here and got on video with us for the majority of the time, and I appreciate that. So you're welcome. I hope you got something really good out of it. I hope everybody else was able to get something good out of this as well. And so thank you very much, Kevin. I'll go
Welcome.
ahead and say everybody can say good night or
It's a
good
pleasure,
morning,
everybody.
early morning for
Thank
some
you.
of you.
Good night. Good
Thank
morning.
you.
Yeah.
All
Good night,
right.
everybody. Thanks for
Good
being here.
day.
Night, everyone.
You guys
Bye.
have a good evening. Stay dry.
Yeah.
All right.